Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our every Thursday speaker series meeting for the Arkansas Enabling Technology Pilot Project. I say every Thursday speaker series, but you may have noticed we have not done one in the last couple of weeks. So happy to be back at it. Today we're going to have Matthew Hansen from Mercarik talking about wearable technology and some other cool stuff. So really good session for you to be tuned in for. Obviously, we're going to record this, post this to our YouTube channel as we have done with the other speaker series sessions that we've done. Couple of quick administrative things for the folks on the call. So just a few reminders for you. Just regarding the vendor matrix, we continue to update it as we get additional information from vendors who are participating in the pilot program or who would like to participate in the pilot program. As you do your assessments and as you identify your technology needs, certainly you're going to be meeting with your subject matter expert to kind of help you sift through what might be available. But also remember, you have the vendor matrix available to you, which is a list of every vendor in a column at the top, and every, and I don't know, there's some 70 odd categories of things that they might do. So as you narrow down what you need, it's a really good way for you to identify which vendors can provide that. So that's been information provided by the vendors, vetted by our SMEs, and gives you just a quick reference tool. So make sure you're using that. I'll send the link back out for the vendor matrix in case you misplaced the link or need it updated. But we're refreshing it as we get more information in, so certainly go back and check it out every once in a while. Another item that I'm going to spend more time on it on Tuesday during the all provider meeting. But as you're beginning your assessments, data collection around the individual's just general satisfaction with day-to-day activities and general comfort with technology. We have a survey that we want you to give to them during that process, during the initial assessment, once you've determined that you're going to move forward with technology for them. So I will resend that link. It's a simple 5-question survey. It's probably 2 minutes max, but it's something that in talking to folks, it sounds like it may have sort of fallen on the floor. So I'm going to resurface that, and I will go into it more on Tuesday. I'll make sure you can see the forum and ask any questions you have about it. And that is those are the 2 items I wanted to start out. So without further ado, we are going to hand it over to Matthew Hansen from Mercarik. Matthew's talking about wearable technology. I want to thank Matthew for sort of sliding in here last minute or last couple days to fill this slot. Really appreciate your agility to do that, and it is your time.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you everybody else for allowing me the time to speak with you this morning. My name is Matthew Hansen. I am an assistive technology professional and an environmental accessibility specialist. I own Mercarik Assistive Technology and have for about the last 8 years. I have been working directly with assessing for assistive technology and then implementing the suggested devices for a little over a decade now. So either I know what I'm talking about at this point or I darn well should. Most of the assistive technology professionals with Mercarik, we would consider ourselves generalists because of the massive varying needs of the people that we help support. Luckily, the topic for today was wearables, and out of absolute necessity, our knowledge base is going to be a little bit deeper on that. So let's go ahead and jump right in. The largest category of wearables that we're going to talk about today, and otherwise we're just going to touch on a couple of things, is going to be location devices and personal emergency response devices. They are the quickest and easiest, least expensive, most user-friendly way to really help with the safety of some of the individuals that we help support. Before we go and choose a device, there are a number of questions that we need to ask. We need to look at the wearable and attachment options for the person, the cellular network and landline, size considerations and sensitivity issue, price. These first four are all big ones because we want to know whether the individual is going to be able to tolerate the device. Are they going to wear it, right? Caregiver alerts and call center response, we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we discuss the individual devices. Does it have a caregiver app? Does it have a desktop portal? The caregiver app and desktop portal are important things to differentiate because where is this person going to be supported? If they're in their own home and with parents or natural supports, then an app is a great thing to use. If we're in a supported living environment, then many times the group homes do not have a dedicated cell phone to be used or that's going to be passed around. We're going to require a desktop portal so multiple different people can log into that at any given time. Two-way communication. Do we need two-way communication? Who are we going to communicate with the two ways? And that goes to the caregiver alerts or the call center response. We want to decide whether we're going to have those alerts go directly to a person or a direct caregiver or directly to a call center. Quickly on that, call centers are great. Call centers never take a break. They never fall asleep. They never go out for a cigarette. They're always going to be there to take that call when we need them. On the other side, they don't know the person supported. The person supported might not be comfortable talking to them. Fall detection. Do we need fall detection? If we need fall detection, how tall is the person? Many of these devices are going to say that the person needs to be at least 5 feet tall and in an upright position, or the fall detection isn't going to notice the time. When they fall, do we project any movement of the person? Sometimes when they fall, they will say, if they can reach out and push the button, then they're going to need to do that, because if the device detects a fall, but then it detects movement, it disregards that. So the person literally needs to be knocked out in order for the fall detection to work. Now, this is going to be individual depending on the device you choose. So these are questions that you need to ask beforehand. What is the motivation of the person? Are they going to wear it? This is something that I always ask before we implement a device is, do you really want this? I am based out of Minnesota and we work in other states as well, but at the end of the day, we're taking the waiver's money. And I'm really, really good at spending the waiver's money. We get a little bit better at it every month. But let's spend it on the right things and the right person. And if the device is going to sit in a drawer and not be used, then it's not helping anybody. We just wasted money. How many times have all of you walked into a person's home and said, oh, do you have a personal response pendant? Sure, I do. Where is it? Well, it's in a drawer, and it hasn't been charged in 6 months. Not really helping. Now, I'm going to save that one. The last question to ask is, why else is this device not going to work? As an assistive technology professional, everybody assumes that my job is to figure out what's going to work for a person. Well, yeah, it is. But to get there, I need to find out all of the different reasons why it's not going to work. Or else, once again, we're just kind of wasting time. Now, in order to do that, we're going to talk about kind of PERS pendants and the tracking watches first. we're going to need to find out all of those reasons why something might not work. And I know in Arkansas, you guys are all huge metropolitan areas with no valleys and no dead spots for cellular coverage. So this probably doesn't apply to you. But just in case you get into an outlying area, somewhere, we got to know what cellular network is going to work if it's a cellular enabled, or is it not going to work at all? And we can touch on this too. At Mercarik, we have all kinds of grids and flow charts and different ways to find out why a device isn't going to work for a person, and then ultimately get to the device that will. And I'm not going to give away the store here. I'm not going to show you guys all of the different graphs and flow charts and all of that we need. I'm just pulling up a couple of them that we have as examples. And as you're probably going to see on here, this one's a little bit old. As a matter of fact, the Wizard Watch doesn't even exist anymore. It has gone over to the Phoenix that is being used for multiple sizes. So now you know how much exactly I'm giving away. The other specifications we're going to want to take a look at is how are they going to wear it? Is there a caregiver app? What is the person's wrist size? We work with all kinds of varied people. There are different wrist mounted units that I've wanted to use in the past, but the wrist is either too big, the person is too young, or frankly, the wrist is just too small, too big. The wrist is frankly too big, and we're going to need to find something with an expandable band. So when we're talking about the device, if we're talking about a watch form, then is an expandable band available? Is the band removable? Many of the watch devices, the band is not removable and not changeable because the antenna for the cellular function of the device is incorporated into the band of the watch. And if we try and change that, we're going to wreck our cellular coverage, and that's just not going to work out. So now we've kind of taken a look at some of the different things to look at. We can take a look at some of the particular devices out there. Oh, one more time. On the pricing of a device, and I should say right up front that Mercarik does have financial relationships with many, many companies. And we have financial relationships with many of the companies that we're talking about today. I am not suggesting use of any individual company. Even if I mention the name of the company, like we're mentioning AngelSense here, I have used every single one of these devices multiple times in the past. Every single one of them has wonderful features, and they have drawbacks and good reasons why you wouldn't use the devices. So please do not see just because we put a device on there today as any sort of an endorsement. The reason that I'm putting up the AngelSense device here is when we're looking at the price of a device, there are a number of things we need to look at. Are we going to be paying an annual service fee because they're generally a little bit less expensive? Are we going to do the monthly plan? Which device from the company are we going to choose? Because often they have separate fees involved. When it comes to charging through the Department of Human Services, what I've found is they do not like annual plans, because if they have paid the annual plan and the person goes off of their current waiver, then the government is stuck paying for it. They're going to be much more apt, and this is simply in my experience and in my areas, to pay the monthly price. So something to look at beforehand. When you're choosing a device too, the monthly fee and the device cost is not the only thing we're going to be looking at. We're going to want to go and we're going to want to look at the wearable options for it. Many times the people are going to decide that they need multiple wearable options for a situation that they're in. For example, they're using the pendant style, but the child goes swimming quite often. They go to the lake and the parents want to keep track of them there, you're going to need a waterproof pouch. Many times we don't know which item the child is going to take to and what's going to work best. So we need to go ahead and choose multiple items. The last thing to note on here is if you are working through a vendor, such as myself, and not specifically with the company like an Angel Sense or a Verizon or another company, then the fees that you see online are not going to be the fees that you're charged. We have expenses as well. So don't give me a call back and say, hey, this isn't the price I saw online. I know this isn't the price I saw online. If you want to order it online, go for it. Okay. Individual devices. You might notice a couple of these devices. You may have seen them, used them in the past. Two of the people who I think are involved, or at least tangentially involved with what you're doing today. The one on the left is a device through Nomo, and the one on the right is an example of a device offered by Simply Home. These are two different kind of, and the Nomo on the left offers additional items with this device to do additional things, just as Simply Home offers different remote monitoring devices as well. But we're not talking about those today. We're talking about wearables, so I'm going to focus on that. And the reason that I have these two devices first is we have really in-home units to be used within 100 or a couple hundred feet of the base station. The one on the right is going to be connected to a call center. You see a much lighter pendant next to it. This device is going to be connected to a landline in the home, or the base unit has a cellular option. The pendants also do have the availability of fall detection for the person supported, but if you're going to be speaking to anyone on the other line, they need to be able to hear you from the base unit, and that is where their voice is going to be coming from. So the two big differences that we're thinking about today between these two particular devices, oh, the one on the left can also be connected to the Wi-Fi in the home, or is also connected to the Wi-Fi in the home as well, is the one on the right. It connects you to a call center. And we talked a little bit about that earlier. Most of them call themselves 5-star response centers, where you have given the response center quite a bit of information about the person supported, health issues, emergency contacts, but it is a representative from that company who is going to be answering the call. On the left, you have the availability of a call button that can also directly call out to the phone number of a call giver, or I'm sorry, of a caregiver that is supported. Sometimes there's the availability too of a rollover function, where it will first attempt to contact a caregiver. If you do not get in contact with the caregiver, somebody needs to answer that call, so it's going to go over to 911. So two basic kind of ideas between the systems here. Once again, if there are people on the call who are very knowledgeable about personal emergency response units, then you know I'm skipping a lot. We're trying to just kind of gloss over and go skin deep today. If you want a greater explanation, I know we can do that. Okay, cellular PERS units. The one you're seeing on screen is from a company called Hands Free Health. The kind of trade name for these pendants are the Wellbe. Again, this is not a suggestion to use Wellbe or these pendants, but they're a good example of pendants out there. So on the right, you've got a basic personal emergency response pendant with fall detection available and a button to push. Some of the different features that can be had with these buttons is a haptic feedback. On the particular button you're looking at, if you hold down the button, the pendant will vibrate to let you know that yes, it understood that you had held down the button long enough, and then it will have a very loud beep saying, I am connecting to a call service. The watch on the left, you're going to see a watch that looks just like this from multiple different companies. That's because the hardware that we're using is commercially available to multiple companies. The back end and the software used with the watches can be slightly different or very different depending on the company. Watches also have fall detection as well. On this one, what you're going to do is hold down the crown of the button, push it down on the side of the watch. There is going to be a countdown on the watch for 2 to 5 seconds, which is settable by the company. So you don't accidentally, with your wrist, kind of set off the unit. And then it will say call initiated, and you will hear that beeping to know that a call has been initiated. With any of the personal emergency response, the person is going to get on the line and say, is this an emergency? If it's not an emergency, just say no. They'll hang up the phone for you, and you're good to go, and you're on your way again. Fall detection is available on watches as well. Not all of them, but on some of the watches as well. One of the things that I want you to be careful of is, and I'm going to speak, and when I'm saying anything today, it is in my opinion, in my experience. I don't want to speak for any individual company. Fall detection does not work as well on watches. And you can imagine all of the different reasons why. We're moving our arms around. The algorithm used to initiate fall detection in a watch is going to have to be different. Also, you're going to get a much greater number of false positives for fall detection on a watch. If any of you have an iWatch or an Android watch and have that security function involved, you've probably gotten a notification, did you just fall, on your watch before. They do learn to a degree, but fall detection, I am always going to suggest a pendant over a watch if the person is looking for fall detection. But if the person says, I'm not going to wear a pendant, I will wear a watch, well, it's better to have the person wearing the device and have not as great fall detection than have them not wearing it at all. Okay, these are going out to an emergency response center. Okay, the next ones we have are dedicated devices, which are similar to the PERS pendants. Again, with the Angel Sense that you're seeing here, you can incorporate fall detection as well. The one on the right is the GeoBit. We'll talk about that in just a second. But the difference between the Angel Sense and the pendant that we just spoke of is now this one is going to a dedicated caregiver and not a call center. It does have two-way communication, so it can call the caregiver's cell phone, or the caregiver can now call this device as well and break into it and initiate a conversation with the person. It also has an app with it, and we'll take a look at the app in just a moment, where this is a location device where we can track the location of the person supported. I'm going to talk about the GeoBit for a second, then we'll talk about them together. The GeoBit on the right, this is when price comes into play a little bit. The GeoBit is going to be a lower monthly fee than many of the other devices out there. And the reason is the GeoBit does not have two-way communication. The GeoBit is simply a location or a tracking device. But when I say simply, both of these have different other features as well, such as geofencing. We can literally draw a circle, we can virtually draw a circle around the person's location on the application, and we can be alerted if the person leaves that immediate area. The location can be set anywhere from 100 yards to many miles. There are also safe zones that are able to be set with individual devices, such as schools. So we can set the time of day, and if the person leaves that school location during a certain time of day, we can be notified. The GeoBit is very cool also in a way where we can set location barriers for them to cross over. Let's say mom and dad are waiting for a bus to come home, but they don't want to. I'm in Minnesota and it gets to 20 below here. So we don't want to be standing outside on the corner waiting for kiddo to come home. We can set a location. Now you need to physically be at that location to set that location that the bus crosses, say half a mile from the house. And when the bus crosses that line, you can get a notification. Then you can come outside and meet kiddo at the bus. Again, moving very, very fast because we've got a lot to get to. Okay, when all else fails and we do not have cell service, and we cannot get a device that works, we have Project Lifesaver. I don't know if the police departments around Arkansas are using Project Lifesaver, but there are individual family devices that can be used. You can see from the picture that the person is holding basically a big old antenna. And what they will do is they will turn around in a circle, and when it's facing where that device is, it's going to ping. This can work up to great distances and is wonderful in large wooded areas or large rural areas. You're not going to be able to see a location on a phone. It's going to take more training and work, but you can really hunt down where something is because you've got a beacon that is emitting a signal. The antenna finds that signal and says, go that way. It's not going to tell you how far away it is. It's just going to say you're going in the right way direction or the wrong direction. These are a bit expensive. You do need to purchase the devices, and it's going to be over $1,000. But I've used this a number of times in highly rural areas where you just got a kiddo who can't stop from running, and it's pretty scary. So I do say kind of last resort because there's a lot going on here. One of the other things that I will say on this is there are leather bands where you can connect a device to the child's ankle. Now, I am absolutely not about low-jacking a kid. They are not criminals. The people that we work with are generally not breaking the law or on probation. So I am against putting something on a person who absolutely does not want them on there. But there have been times where the needs simply outweighed the concerns that we had. A leather band is available to be used on the person's ankle. Can this be cut off? Absolutely. You give somebody enough time and they're going to get any of these tracking devices off. But it's going to get us a little bit closer to where we want to be. It's going to take some time. So if you have more questions on this, all of these different items have pretty good websites. So take a look at them. Okay. Applications. I believe the one on the left is the GeoBit. So you can kind of see that we're looking at an overhead view of the streets around the person's house. There also is Google Maps view on this, so you can kind of see more terrain and houses and see if you recognize something that the person is around. There are also different call functions on the different apps, different caregivers. If you look to the one to the right, I believe this is Nomo, but it's a pretty general screen where we can invite different caregivers. You do not need to have the app on your phone to be a caregiver. You can have your phone number put into many of these devices if you have to accept the invitation, but you do not need to give the application out. So if we are working with a person in a licensed facility where we want to send alerts to multiple caregivers, that does not mean that we want to give them access to the app. I would highly discourage putting applications for individuals on personal cell phones of paid caregivers. That's up to you. but that is my professional recommendation. The one on the right is we have not talked about yet. That is a screenshot of the Embrace 2 watch by Empatica, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. That is a rapid movement detection monitor. They like to call it seizure detection. I'll talk about why I don't call it that in a second. Okay, the last thing to talk about on kind of location and personal emergency response style watches, and I know this is backwards, is the iWatch, Galaxy, Fitbit, and like style watches. Many of these have cellular functions and can work independently, can be set with health-related data, so you can do O2 levels, pulse rate, location. Then you can also do the two-way calling, fall detection. One of the reasons that we don't use as many of these is the cost is considerably higher for the device, and generally the monthly cost of a dedicated device, if not paired with a cell phone, is going to be higher as well. But in Minnesota, we have a rule that the device needs to be locked, meaning the device has to be set to only do what we want a personal emergency response device to do. They can't text their friends. They can't get on the internet. They can't work with other applications that are not dedicated to what we are seeing as a health and safety related issue, because then it is going to be the person's or the family's responsibility. It's not for them to play with. It's for health and safety. With that said, we have had a number of these devices covered by the waiver. The device has been covered, not the cellular coverage for the device. All right, let's switch gears just a little bit, and we're moving away from that. The Boundary Care Watch. The Boundary Care Watch I'm specifying now, you're going to look at the picture, and that is an iWatch, and it is paired with an iPhone. But through their service, the watch is locked and the phone is locked to the dedicated needs that we have identified. Fall protection is there, tracking services and the elopement is there, seizure symptoms, and I like that they put seizure symptoms on there and not seizure detection, because many times a seizure can present itself with an increased or decreased heart rate, a different oxygen saturation level. There are many different symptoms of a seizure that we can, or precursors to a seizure that once identified can help us to say that a person is having a seizure when it is not necessarily a rapid movement. Behavioral, we can also do reminders, de-escalation techniques, biofeedback, and put different activity goals on here. Boundary Care, I guess I am kind of biased a little bit here. Boundary Care is very cool. And there are more devices coming out there and doing similar things, but I have not worked with particular devices yet, and their people, heck, I'll recommend this one. I like it. Okay, I know I have not stopped people and asked for questions, and I apologize for that. I know we're going to do some questions at the end. They gave me a half an hour, and I'm trying to keep it close. The Embrace 2 watch by Empatica. Now, Embrace is going to call this a seizure detection watch because it is the only device in America that has been authorized by the FDA for seizure detection. Now, it's not. It is a rapid and unusual movement detection monitor. So what it is made to recognize is a convulsive seizure. So if a person is having absent seizures, auras, and those different things, it is not going to recognize that. On the other side, it has been recognized by Medicare, Medicaid at some points for payment. It isn't always authorized, but occasionally I have seen it authorized. It does come with an application. It can be paired to caregivers. There is a caregiver application, so the caregiver can help out with this too. The two apps are separate, the one for the individual and the one for the caregiver. A cell phone is necessary for this device and needs to be kept within the Bluetooth range. The watch is not cellular in itself. It is Bluetooth and connects with the phone. Touch points. Touch points are cool as well. What we're talking about here is the way they market these are generally for stress relief, and there's some pretty good clinical data showing a reduction of stress when these are used. The one is meant to be put on the left side of the body. On the right side of the body, you see a wrist-worn option on one side, a belt-worn option on the other. People wear these on straps on their shirt. They can hold them in their hands. What we have is basically a vibrating device where you're going to concentrate and calm yourself, right? What I found they are also useful for is people who are focusing in on different issues, and people who need to be kind of pulled out of their own mind. We can set different devices on more of a timer where they can buzz every 5 minutes or so. So if you are starting to fixate on different things, if you have a person who is easily kind of fixated on issues or is easily really distracted by different things, this can help bring them back to the present and bring them back to where we want them to be, or not where we want them to be, where they want to be and have wandered from in their minds. Orcam Read and Orcam MyEye. Okay, the Orcam Read is not a wearable device, but it's cool, so I put it on there too. The Orcam MyEye, they say that they are working with artificial intelligence, and I kind of have an issue with AI with this device, calling it AI, but what it does learn. So you see the device connected to the glasses, and this can read different things in front of you. You can voice activate parts of this, you can use touch to activate parts of this, and it can read what's in front of you. You can also, the smart and the AI part is you can put this in front of a menu and you can click on a menu and you can say, read the desserts to me. Only tell me about the steak dishes. Tell me about the burgers. And it will just focus on those keywords and read through what you're looking at. You can say find different sections. One of the very cool functions is once programmed, it can recognize faces, it can recognize items, it can recognize colors. So we can, when you're walking down the street and it sees Amy in front of it, it can say Amy is standing in front of you. So you can say, hi, Amy. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate you playing along. There are multiple different functions of this too, but you can kind of see some of the possibilities. It does learn, and it can tell you what's going on. That item is red. The stoplight is green. Hopefully, this is meant for blind low vision, so hopefully we're not driving, but it can do things like that for you. Ira. Okay. Ira is no longer, the glasses form of Ira is no longer available, but with the introduction of the Facebook glasses, I'm confident that the technology is back and Ira is going to start offering the wearables again. What Ira is, right now it works on your cell phone. They previously had these glasses. And if you put the camera of your phone up in front of you, you hit go on the number, it connects you with a live person on the other end of the phone. Previously, and hopefully soon in the future, the person wearing the glasses can turn their head and the person on the other end of the phone can say, this is what you're looking at. So if you're in a grocery store and you're talking to the person, you can say, I'm looking for the Cheerios. They can say, it's 2 boxes to the left. It's that one. And you can go ahead and grab that. If you're walking down the street and you hit go on the application, you can say to the caregiver, hey, where's the closest Starbucks? And they're going to help guide you to where you're going. Take a left at the next light. Again, you can kind of imagine all of the different possibilities where you have a live person on the other end who has Google Maps in front of them and different websites and different partnerships. So you can look at all of the different partners through the Iris site. Again, they don't have the glasses currently, but I got to believe they're going to again soon. So with some of these, I'm just kind of going through a few different things out there. The glass outs, different kinds of wearable devices for using the computer. Much like the blind low vision that I showed you, a few devices, there are multiple devices out there for that. There are multiple devices that are going to work with a computer as well. What you're seeing here is the gentleman is looking at a laptop. As he moves his head, it's going to move the mouse on his screen, and in his mouth is a bite switch. So that's going to be basically the left and right click on the mouse. So he can simply move his head and navigate through his computer. Okay, we went very, very fast through a number of different items, and the biggest focus was on the emergency response and locating units, simply because they're the most often used and prevalent right now. There are, for physical challenges, there are dozens and dozens of additional devices that can be used, as with blind low vision and for other needs. But I think I came pretty close to my half an hour, so hopefully that worked out. Questions?
Matthew, what are the one or two biggest objections you typically hear about wearing your wearables, and maybe one or two ways to overcome those objections?
It's really going to depend on the person. The biggest objection that we're getting to wearables is sensitivity issues, and most often with that due to autism. Getting over those issues is trying different wearable options. The watches are very frequently not going to work, but we don't want to lose the device. So for something like the GeoBit or the AngelSense, or you can simply buy their buy other accessories off the internet for other devices, is belt clips, pin lock pouches. There are pouches that you can put in a person's pocket, use a pin lock, much like you're going to see on items at the clothing store. You know, they beep when you go out, only these don't beep when you go through a metal detector. And that's going to make it so the child, it is more difficult for them to get off. Now, when I said before, we're not going to low jack a child. Trust me, if a 10-year-old kid wants to get something off and really doesn't want to wear a tracker, they're not going to wear a tracker. And there's not much you can do to stop them. Other objections that I get are privacy, and they don't want somebody tracking their movements. The pendants, it's ugly, and I don't want to look like I'm old. I don't either. I don't want to wear one. Different things to that. You can put the pendants under your shirt, or we'll switch to a watch option. And that's why the smartwatches are very cool these days, and are switching and are looking more and more like a standard smartwatch. So it's not going to look like you're wearing a PERS unit.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be wearing a smartwatch.
Yeah. Matthew, I appreciate with Shift Education and a lot of stuff you're covering, we try to talk about in education. I just appreciate your attention on those kinds of things, not feeling ostracized or, pulled out or anyway that. And I had a question, but I did want to remind all providers that you're going through, and Matthew was excellent in covering this, but that reminder that anytime you're dealing with geo-tracking at all, make sure you're in good contact with your human rights committee, and that they're versed in HCBS community support expectations. Just make sure that we talked about that before. I won't revisit it, but Matthew did a great job, and I appreciate your attention on that. My question, I want to go back to a specific thing because I get this question a lot. You're saying that there really are no wearables that can detect these auras or silent seizures, they're often called. Is that your experience?
Now they can't say definitively this is what's happening, but what we can do is take something like the boundary care watch, and we can set limits on there, a high and a low. Let's say my resting pulse rate is generally about 59.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you. Quite often we're seeing with seizure activity that a pulse rate will drop very quickly into, say, the low 50s level from that. Now, with that, we might also see the oxygen saturation drop from 98% to 94%. Mm-hmm. So we can set parameters on the watch where if we see that the pulse rate has dropped, the blood oxygen level has dropped, then it is very likely that the person is having a seizure. They're having the symptoms that we have identified. Now, when you take that watch, day one, you're not going to know. Mm-hmm. You're going to need to
put some baseline.
Get the baseline, exactly. And if you're sitting in the living room and you notice the person had the seizure and they're wearing the watch, well, then you can go back to that data on your app or desktop and you can say, this is what happened. And then you can continue to pare that down. And now you've got a very good idea. Will it say he had a seizure? No. It will say he had all of the symptoms we identified as a seizure.
I so appreciate that clarity because I haven't heard that from others, and I so appreciate that. If you're working with an organization or with a particular family, do you help them understand this sort of baseline understanding and that as well? Is that something your organization does?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I have a question. So with private insurance, how much would this watch cost? Or with this?
With private insurance, they'd laugh at you.
I was afraid of that.
Yeah, most assistive technology currently isn't covered through Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance. Now, that's not to say all of it isn't covered. I've seen some interesting stuff where private insurance has said yes to it. But no, there is no code for this under private insurance currently.
Okay.
Unless something happened recently that I don't know about, and I don't think so.
If we just outright purchased it, what are we looking at?
I don't know. I apologize for not having an answer to that question. I work with multiple different companies, and I simply don't remember all of the companies.
And the reason I ask is my niece out of nowhere started having seizures, and we've been dealing with it for multiple years now. And she has a watch that she puts on at night so that if she has one during the night, it will notify my sister and my brother-in-law. But she doesn't wear it during the day because she's 14 and 14-year-old girls run into everything. So it would constantly be triggered. But if we could, it would assist my sister in tracking what's going on if she was to have one during the day.
I would give them a call and I would talk to them. Maybe if you work with them directly, maybe they'll say, you know what, we'd love to get more knowledge out in your area and you're in the profession and you're going to be talking about it. Maybe there's something that they can do for you. We, as assistive technology people, we all kind of talk to each other and we all tend to know each other, even across states. They're really nice guys. The guy's actually the founder of this is a professor at a private college in Minnesota. Ask him. See if there's anything they can do.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Any other questions for Matthew? Well, Matthew, thank you so much for taking the time today. Really informative to get a framework of questions to think about as you're talking to people about these type of wearable devices, and just a great walkthrough on all of the options available. A couple of really eye-opening ones for me that I wasn't aware of. So really appreciate your presentation.
Well, thank you all for your time and attention. This is a really important subject to me. And thank you all.
Matthew, I have one. Can you drop your contact information in the chat?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. There's no vendor spotlight today. At the end of Tuesday's all provider meeting, Tuesday morning's all provider meeting, Syngistics will do a vendor spotlight. So that'll happen on Tuesday. Make sure you join that call, because we've got a few topics to go over more about just the details of the project. And then we'll have another speaker series coming up next Thursday. Thank you all very much. Have a good day.